guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're filming episode 14, I believe, of the Lunar podcast, and I think it's only been 2 weeks since our last one, so this one may be a little bit shorter, but I was feeling very inspired today to film another podcast, so here we are. I am coming to you from Columbus, Ohio, where it is freaking cold today. It snowed last night, and I think it was like 5 degrees was the wind chill, so yeah. Luckily, I did not have a lot of dog walks today, so I am cozied up inside, and I plan on knitting the rest of the day after I film and edit this. So I always do my podcast without any planning whatsoever, but I do try to leave links to everything I talk about in the description box down below. So if you are curious as to where you can find a pattern that I talk about today, then just check the description box down below. And if you have any questions about where I get my yarn or anything like that, just feel free to ask. And you may see some puppies join me off and on today. My little pups are running around like usual and cuddled up next to me. And as you can see, we're kind of back in our old location. I tried to work with the lighting, so hopefully it's not too dark or too light today. I don't know, I have a mirror set up behind the camera, but I can barely see still, so we're just going with it just like a typical Lori podcast. So without further ado, I think we're just going to go ahead and jump into the podcast, starting with the finished object. So I finished my Cipolla tee. This is by Caitlin Hunter, and yeah. So I finished this last week sometime. I blocked it, and here we are. I made the short sleeve version of the Cipolla by Caitlin Hunter, as I just mentioned, and I used Sweet Georgia yarn. This is in the colorway Trinket, the dark purple, and the light purple is in the colorway Gray Lady, I believe. And I'll give you a little close-up here of what it looks like. So the colorway Trinket is so tonal. Let me see if I can't get you a little bit better of a look at this body. I am wearing sweatpants, so, you know, just ignore that if you want. So the body has so many tones in it, the Trinket color. The way that Sweet Georgia dyes their yarn is just incredible. It's so cool. I had never used Sweet Georgia before I became an ambassador. I just followed them on social media. So I was super glad to get to play with it finally. It's so soft and squishy and stretchy, and I absolutely love it. So they did send me this yarn, but they're not paying me to say anything about it or anything like that. They just sent it to me to talk about, and I do have an affiliate link for you guys to the Sweet Georgia website that I'll have linked below if you want to check out their yarn or their fiber or even the School of Sweet Georgia, which I talked a little bit about in my last podcast because I am doing some yarn dyeing courses on there so I can learn how to dye some freaking cool yarn like this too. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Cipolla pattern. I think the last time I talked to you guys, I was right here at pretty close to the top of the yoke still, and I just powered through it. I really wasn't feeling the color work on it anymore because I casted on another color work sweater when I really didn't want to, but I always do that. I really wanted to play with the Sweet Georgia yarn though, so I, of course, did it anyways, and my tension is really quite good in most of the color work, but there are a few areas that are a little looser with the stitches, which is totally fine, that happens. And also I think my row gauge was off because as you can see, my yoke is really long, and I know that my width gauge is perfect. It was exactly what the pattern said, and so I think I made the second size, which I wish I would have made the first size. This is a little bit more positive ease than I want it, and I don't know how much I love it, especially the sleeves. The sleeves are giving me a really hard time. I will probably do something about them in the future, either extend them because I do have enough of the purple, both yarns left over, or I will rip back and shorten them because I really did want the t-shirt version, but since my yoke was so long, they sit a little bit weird on my arms. I also really do not like the design feature of the ribbing and the rolled hem on the sleeves. Let me see if you guys can't see that a little bit better. It's just a really weird fit on me particularly, not something that I love. And then since the sleeve has like some decreases, it kind of bubbles out here a little bit more than I would like. So I don't know how much I'm going to enjoy wearing this too often. Maybe if I put like a denim jacket or something over it to hide the sleeves, I'll be more comfortable. but as it is right now, I just don't love the sleeves on this sweater, so it's a little disappointing when you finish something and you don't absolutely love it, but you know what? That happens sometimes, and who knows, maybe in the future this will become my favorite sweater, because that does happen sometimes. So this is the Cipla, and I don't really have too much else to say. It didn't take very much yarn at all, especially for the short sleeve version. I had 2 skeins of the Trinket colorway and 1 skein of the Gray Lady, and I have about half the skein of Gray Lady left and about 3/4 or most of the skein second skein of Trinket left. I did not alternate skeins in the body until I was about to switch skeins, and then I did like a little bit of fading into it, and I honestly don't think it mattered that much at all. The yarn doesn't seem to be dyed to pool, but you can get some weird color flashes, which I do think I got a little bit of a color flash in here, but that's not where I changed the yarn, so it's not from that at all. So I think really it's personal preference if you wanted to alternate skeins with the Sweet Georgia yarn, but it's always best to alternate skeins if you're going to be worried about that. Sometimes I just feel lazy and I don't want to. So I knit the entire yoke just using, 1 skein. I obviously didn't alternate, and then whenever I got to the body, I was like, whatever. So for this, I used my wooden legging needles, whatever they're called, and I think I went up to a 4.5 millimeter to get gauge, because Caitlin Hunter has a very loose gauge, so I need it to go up a little bit. And honestly, I probably either could have just went for the size down, or I could have gone for the tighter gauge that I normally knit in, because to be completely honest, I'm really not a fan of the loose gauge and fingering weight yarn. I quite enjoy fingering weight sweaters, but I like them at a tighter gauge because they just feel like they're going to be more secure. With this being a colorwork sweater at such a loose gauge, it feels a little bit delicate for me, like I'm going to rip a stitch out and like pull it, just because it's so loose. So typically whenever I knit a Caitlin Hunter design, I go a size up in the pattern, and then I go down a needle size for myself, and I usually get a tighter fitting sweater like the way I like, but this time I decided to knit it exactly like the pattern. Since I've been doing so many sample knits lately, I have been knitting them exactly to pattern, and I've been enjoying that. Even though I know those sweaters come out a lot bigger than I would like them, I decided to do it for myself anyways, and I'm kind of a little bummed that I didn't just listen to my instincts like I normally do. But I think my only flaw that I have with this sweater is definitely the sleeves. And I think whenever I'm in a better headspace over this project, then maybe I'll go back and I'll rip them out and I will figure something better out for them. Maybe I'll just extend them all the way down and leave the color work off. I don't know. Something will come to mind, I'm sure, and this will become a wearable sweater in the future. Now, I did shorten the body because I knew that my yoke was a little bit longer than what the pattern shows. And I'm not even sure that my yoke is longer because I did not measure my row gauge still, because I didn't really care because the project's done. What am I going to do now? So I'm not totally sure. And I was looking at her pictures, and it honestly doesn't look like it falls that much lower than where hers does. But I went up to, I believe the second size is like 42.5 inches or something like that. I'm not 100% sure what the second size was, but I know it was much larger. It would give me a lot more positive ease than maybe I want it, even though I do like a lot of positive ease. So I can't tell you that this is exactly like that it is longer of a yoke. It may fit perfectly, but my boobs just don't fill it out the way that it's supposed to for this size. So it really, I just don't know unless I go measure, and I'm probably not going to go measure my row gauge. So yeah, that's that. This is the Cipla. I don't think I have anything else to say about it. It was a relatively quick knit, especially if you're doing a short sleeve version, because you don't have a lot of sleeves to worry about. And this yarn is incredible. Like, I can't talk about how nice this Sweet Georgia yarn is enough. It's so soft. Like, one of the softer indie dyed yarns that I've used, definitely. I can't get enough of it. Like, I just want to sit here and stroke it and wear it on my body, and it's kind of giving me more motivation to rip these sleeves out and fix them because of how soft it is. And even though I just trash talked the loose gauge on this, it is really nice. Like obviously a loose gauge gives you a really soft, squishy, pliable fabric, and it's so drapey, and I do really like it. So now I'm like, I just want to rip it all out or rip the sleeves out and finish it because it is cute. So we'll see what happens in the upcoming months. So that is my only finished object for this week. I really went hard on it. As soon as I like picked it back up, I was like, you are finishing this, girl. You got this. Let's do it. So as soon as I finished this project, I casted on another project. So there is a new cast on that you guys haven't seen yet, and it's so perfect. But I'm actually going to show you a design that I'm working on that I talked about in my last podcast, but I didn't show you guys because I wasn't totally sure if it was working out or not, and I wanted it to be at a stage where I was like more confident in it. So let's go ahead and talk about a design that I'm working on. Hopefully I'll make a pattern for it, but I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to do a pattern or I might make a video tutorial. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. It may just be a project for myself. Who knows? So it's a pretty basic raglan, and it's using the Wonder Fluff that I used in my rug sweater that I showed you guys last time, and I love it. So this is a baby alpaca yarn blend, so it's incredibly soft and lightweight, and you get a really nice halo. And these are all of the colors that I used in my rug sweater, like I told you. I know that this is like gray heather or something, and I really don't know the names of any of the other colors off the top of my head, but yeah. So it's a really basic raglan with a v-neck. I really wanted a v-neck sweater, and I wanted something basic so I would wear it often. I love knitted sweaters, and I want to fill my wardrobe with knit sweaters, obviously, but I tend to not even wear the sweaters that I knit most of the time because they're big colorwork sweaters and things that I don't want to wear every day, whereas something simple like this is more of an everyday sweater for me. It's just a simple, basic striped raglan sweater, and I'm thinking about doing something fun for the sleeves, but I haven't decided, so I want your guys' opinions. So run to the comments right now and tell me what kind of sleeves you would add to this. So I was originally thinking just like a fitted sleeve because I wanted it to be a basic and just fit really nicely. And with this yarn, I think that that might be the best option. But I really like the idea of a bell sleeve, like a small bell sleeve. I think that's what it's called, where it's like flowy all the way down. But I was thinking about doing some decreases at the top so it's not full on just like a huge bell sleeve. So decrease it so it's nice and a little bit more fitted at the top, and then let it bell out at the end. And then I kind of played around with like the idea of a bishop sleeve, but I just don't think with stripes that would look very good. The bishop sleeve is where it just decreases really quickly at the end and you get like a bubble. And I just don't think that that's what I'm going for either. So yeah, I have commenced working on this for a little bit just because I haven't had a chance to try it on for the length of the body. I'm trying to figure out how much more I want to add because I do want this to be a sweater I could wear with leggings and it would cover my butt. So we're playing around with how we want to end it with stripes, and I'm also having an internal battle on how, like, when I put the last stripe in, because I think there's going to be one more blue stripe, if I just want to do like a little bit, if that would look weird, like a little bit of gray, if that would look weird, or if just I should just cast off with the blue or bind off with the blue, because I'm going to let it be like a rolled hem because ribbing really does not look that great in this yarn. Because originally this pattern I was trying to do like a ribbed raglan area, so it was going to be like a purl knit purl raglan. So I just wanted to take a clip of what the previous design was going to be, but with this yarn it just didn't look right. It didn't work out. I wanted to have like a ribbing for the raglan increase area, and I frogged this like 3 times. I did it a couple different ways. First I started with some twisted stitches, and I did the increases like right against the purls, so it wasn't very clean. And then I frogged that, and I started over with this one, but I messed something up, and then I started over again, and yeah, I just didn't love it. So I just decided for the pattern I was going to go more basic, and just do a very simple raglan increase, and I think that'll look really nice with the striping that I'm planning on doing later on in the pattern. It'll just be a little bit more clean than having the purl stitches in between, and maybe I'll carry this through on another design that I hopefully will do this year, but we shall see. But I just wanted to show that this was what the prior top I had in mind looked like, and this is what I went with. So yeah, designing, cool, yay. But the ribbing just really did not look good with this yarn. So everything is going to have like a rolled or raw edge. I am going to add an I-cord to the neckline just to clean it up a little bit. Then depending on what I do for the sleeves, we'll see what kind of bind off that has. And then as far as the bottom goes, like I said, that's just going to be a rolled hem as well. And I am using the cute stitch marker that my friend over at Purling Pages sent me with her cute package last time, and it just goes so well with my project. For this, I am using my like needles and a 5.5 millimeter, and it's going great. It's really a fantastic knit. It's so soft. I really hope you guys like it as much as I do because I love it. I think I wanted a little bit deeper of a V-neck, but again, I haven't tried this on, so I'm not totally sure how deep the V-neck is just by holding it up. I did have to frog out this yoke 5 times before I finally got it right because I kept adjusting things and it was all wrong. And then like I said, I was trying to play with the raglan and do something a little bit fun, and then I realized that it's probably best to do something more basic with this yarn and for the sweater because that's what I was going for anyways. So maybe I'll use that in the future. But again, for this I'm using the Wonder Fluff by Knit Picks, and I highly recommend it. I definitely want to get some more for my stash, but we'll see. And since I just mentioned my stash, I do want to talk about that for a minute because I feel like it's the beginning of the year and everybody on their podcast is talking about their stash. And I have some things to say about my stash too. She has no idea that there's a camera here at all, or she would be hiding because she hates the camera. But I do have quite a large stash. It's not like huge, like, oh my gosh, hundreds and hundreds of skeins. I probably have about 150 skeins of indie dyed yarn, maybe. I think that would be pushing it. I think maybe like 75 would be better, but we're not going to count because it doesn't matter. Anyways, I do have quite a bit of sweater quantities and things I've been saving up all through 2019 because in 2019 I did a ton of sample knitting, but I didn't really get to knit for myself at all. So I have been using the time that I've had for the past couple of months to just be knitting for myself, and it's been so much fun to dig through my stash and to come up with new projects to make. So I've had this yarn in my stash for months now, just waiting to become something, and I've been dying to use it, and I finally was able to turn it into something. And same goes with this Wonder Fluff. I've had this in my stash since last summer, and I had no idea when I was going to get to use it. I knew I wanted to use it for my reg sweater, which I did finish, but then I still had a lot left, and I loved the yarn so much, and I didn't want to stop working with it, so I just cast on a whole new project. So I've been having so much fun going through my yarn stash. I haven't been craving buying yarn from Knit Picks or Indie Dyers or anything like that because, like I said, last year I didn't have a whole lot of time to knit for myself, so it's kind of like going into a yarn store and looking at all the yarn and like, oh, what can I make with this? And what can I make with this? So I've been just remembering the patterns that I like and going and remembering the yarn that I've gotten and just pairing them together. And it's been so much fun and so inspiring that I just don't even have an urge to buy yarn. And I hope that continues through 2020 because I would really love to just use all stash yarn this year and just create beautiful projects with what I already have. And I don't really feel guilty about having a big stash, and I don't think I would feel guilty either way based on if I bought the yarn or if I worked to get the yarn, because it's nothing to feel guilty about. It's something that brings me joy and happiness, and it's something that I really am passionate about and I love doing, so I don't feel bad at all. And I know that there's going to come a time when I'm not able to buy any yarn and I still want to continue to knit, and it's just going to be nice to have a little bit of stash to fall back onto so I can keep up with my hobby and I can keep doing the thing that makes me happy. So I think it's really nice to have a little bit of stash for emergency purposes too, in a way, because you never know when you're going to be at a point when you can't even go to a big box store and buy yarn. We've all been there, and it's just really nice that I have something in my stash that I can go to and I can just still find joy, and I can still cast on whenever I want if I need to, because we all know casting on brings you a whole different feeling, a whole different set of emotions. It just, yeah, you can be knitting on a project forever and then still feeling bummed out, but as soon as you cast something on, it's just like a whole new spark of joy that I just love. So I'm going to try to not be so hard on myself this year. If I want to cast something on, I'm going to do it. I want to. So that's kind of my thoughts on my stash this year. I would love to use it up, and I do want to put it into my Ravelry account so I can see what I have, but I have no pressures on myself to not buy yarn or to only use stash. I really just want to keep knitting and doing what makes me happy, and if that is buying yarn or using my stash, then so be it. I am not going to be hard on myself, but I will say right now, as of whatever day today is, I think it's January 20th, I have no urges to buy any yarn. So there we have it. And that brings me into my next cast on, my next work in progress that I wanted to show you guys, because it's also from stash yarn. So I was working on my Cipolla tee, and I was finishing it up, and I felt so inspired because I have had the idea of making a Felix sweater, a Felix pullover in my mind for a very, very long time now. I heard about it on somebody's podcast early last year, like this time last year, and it's been on my list ever since. I had a friend gift me the pattern for the holidays over on Ravelry, which was so nice of them. And then I was just like, what yarn am I going to use? And I had sample knit a sweater for my friend Jen, and in return I received some yarn, and that was the yarn I totally anticipated using for my Felix sweater. It's a really pretty dusty pink color with a mohair, but it was a fingering weight yarn, and a fingering weight yarn held with a mohair is really just like a DK weight yarn, sport weight. So I was a little hesitant on using that yarn because I knew that the gauge would be way different. So I didn't use that yarn to cast on right away, and I sat on it, and I'm so glad that I did, because I remembered that last year, actually it was 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018, Hello Stella actually came out with a kit for a Bohemia cardigan that Mason Dean designed using her Bohemia yarn. And I was so excited to get that kit. My husband said yes, and I did it, and I promised him that I would use it on the project, and I did. I cast it on, and I knit 1.5 of the panels, and then I was sitting there, and I was like, there were a couple of things that were wrong. I didn't alternate skeins, and the skeins were very different, so there was a lot of color blocking. I was still relatively new to knitting garments at that time, and I was definitely new to indie dyed yarn. It was some of the first yarn that I got. And then I was like, I'm not going to wear this because it's just like a lacy kimono, essentially, and I'm not the kind of person that just wears like a tank top and something like that over it. I'm just not comfortable enough in my body for that. So I didn't finish it, and then I ended up frogging it, and then last year, I think you guys probably saw it in a podcast, I used the yarn to cast on the Weekender sweater by Andrea Maury, and I didn't love that either. I think I mostly cast it on because everybody else was knitting it, and I thought, you know, I have the worsted weight yarn, and it's a worsted weight pattern, so let me just give it a go, but there were a couple of issues I had with that as well. That pattern is knit in reverse stockinette, and you knit it inside out, and I needed to alternate skeins with my yarn because, like I said, the skeins were such different colors that you had to do it. There was no way around it, and I was having a really hard time doing that and making it not show on the purl side, and the purl side was what was going to be showing. So overall, I didn't love the pattern, and I didn't love how difficult of a time I was having knitting the pattern, trying to alternate skeins, so I stopped that and I frogged it too. So then I was left with all these little cakes of yarn, and they were just sitting there, and one day when I was knitting this sweater, it came to me. So we are going to talk about it. I had a ton of this Bohemia yarn. I have just like cakes and cakes of it right here, and I have a skein of it right here as well. So this is what it looks like. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is my favorite colorway that Hello Stella does. And it's in the colorway Bohemia, if you guys can see that. And this is in her Worsted Stella base, which is 100% superwash merino. And you get 200 yards of a 4-ply yarn here. So I didn't love the idea of wearing a sweater like this anymore. And I toyed with selling this yarn for a very long time because I didn't think that it would fit into my wardrobe the way I want it to anymore. Although it's gorgeous yarn, I just didn't really see myself wearing it in a sweater because I had seen how it had knit up previously. But then I remembered that I did a sample knit for my friend Atia at Explore Knits and Fibers, and I received some Surrey alpaca in return. And it's in a very neutral color, so it goes with like anything. So we're holding them together for the Felix pullover, you guys. All of that to bring us back to this moment of I casted on the Felix pullover with these two yarns. The Felix pullover calls for an Aran weight yarn to a chunky weight yarn. This is a worsted weight yarn held with a Surrey alpaca, which is giving me about an Aran weight. And I did do a tiny, tiny little swatch for this because I wanted to make sure the colors played well together, and I really didn't give a crap about whether my gauge matched up at all, but I did measure anyways, and it was pretty spot on. So I just cast it on the second size for the sweater, just because I kind of wanted this to be like baggy and just oversized, like a sweatshirt. And I am obsessed with how this is turning out. So I'm gonna make sure I have the front and the back right. I'm alternating skeins using the Helix knitting. I think I'm doing that. I'm really just slipping the stitch and then knitting with that color, and I have no idea if that's helical knitting. I tried to look it up once, but it was really complicated in my mind. So I'm just doing my own thing, and there's no seam, so it seems to be working. So I know the lighting probably isn't amazing. I guess I could turn on a light too, but here we are. So the Felix sweater is just a really basic raglan, really, but it has these beautiful lace increases on the raglan. I don't know how well you're gonna see it on the camera, especially with the speckled yarn, but if you can also see the halo that the alpaca is giving, it's also giving a really marled look to the yarn. I'm obsessed, you guys. I love it. And as you can tell, I have a lifeline right here. And I wanted to leave that in so I could show you guys, and also just in case I screwed up again. Whenever I started this sweater, I worked on it, like I casted it on and I couldn't put it down. My husband was playing video games and I was knitting away. Like I felt so inspired, and I immediately just grabbed everything I needed and just started. So I thought I knew best, and I thought I knew everything, and I didn't read the pattern perfectly the first time. So I knit for like 4 hours on the raglan, and I pretty much finished the entire raglan increases before I realized that you have to knit 2 rounds in between each increase section, and I was only knitting 1 round in between each increase section, which ultimately could have been fine, and I could have just kept going with that, but it does make the lace increase sections a little bit closer together. 1 row, not a big deal, and you do end up knitting a little bit after the increase sections anyways, so I didn't have to rip back, and it was a total pain in the butt because I was doing helical knitting and I was holding Surrey alpaca with it, and that's a very sticky yarn, and I wasn't using 2 skeins of Surrey, I was just using 1, which means a mess. That's all I'm gonna say. It was a mess, but I didn't huff and puff at all. You can ask my husband. He didn't even know I had started frogging it because this project has just been so enjoyable that I didn't even mind doing it. It's so drapey, so squishy, so soft because of the Surrey, and I'm almost at the end. I totally could have had this entire thing finished this weekend, but it was a tough weekend, you guys, so we're at the bottom. I think I knit it to exactly what the pattern said, maybe a little bit longer, because like I said, I wanted it to be a little bit longer. And yeah, so it is a crop sweater, so if you don't want it cropped, you should keep knitting a little bit longer than it says, because I think it says to knit 9 inches, and then you do like an inch or 2 of ribbing, so it was a little bit cropped. But again, if you guys aren't often watching my videos, you wouldn't know, but I am very short, so I pretty much always knit my tops about 9 to 11 inches, and it always hits me at my pant line, like right where my jeans would sit on my hips, and I wear high-waisted jeans most of the time, so they're not really cropped, which is great because I save a lot of yarn, so it's a blessing. So for this sweater, I'm using my like needles as well. I don't know why, I've just been really into these needles lately. And I am using a 5mm, which I think I'm using a 5mm for the ribbing and a 6mm for the body. I'm on the ribbing of the body now, so that's why it's a 5mm. And I stopped alternating skeins for the ribbing because I really didn't know how to keep doing that. So I'm just doing the one color. And then I did not alternate skeins up at the top when I did the short rows. But everything else I have alternated for. As soon as I finish this short rows, I start alternating skeins, and it's been really easy with that method. You can't tell at all. Usually I use the method where I don't do the helical knitting. I just switch to the new color and you kind of get a jog, but I wanted to try to be a little bit better this time. So yeah, I'm really glad that I did that. And I have a progress keeper on here that I wanted to show you. This is by, if I can get it, Tilting Planet. I know I've showed you guys these before because they're my favorite progress keepers. They're just a little globe with lots of star glitter in them, and this one happens to match the sweater perfectly, and this is marking the progress that I made on Saturday, since Saturday. So Saturday I was here and then I worked to there since then, which isn't a whole lot of progress considering this is a worsted weight sweater, but like I said, it was a little bit of a tough weekend, and I've also been reading, so yeah. So that is all of the knitting that I've been working on for the past 2 weeks, and really I'm just so excited about all of it. I'm so excited that I finished my Cipolla. I'm excited that my Felix is almost done, the new designs I'm working on, but I am craving casting on a pair of socks, so maybe in the next episode you'll see a pair of socks. That would be really cool because I have some pretty yarn that I really want to use. Other than socks though, I really don't have any plans for knitting. I do want to make a steeked sweater, and I have found a pattern that my husband said that he would help me like manipulate so I can make it a steeked sweater. So that would be really cool. I do have the yarn already for that. It's a really sticky wool that has a lot of the spinning oils in it still, which is something I've been really excited to try and see how it changes after you block it, because something I have really been interested in more recently, but like since the last year really, is different kinds of wools and how they react when you wash them and how they react when you knit them and the different possibilities with them. And I really want to try steeking with a very sticky wool opposed to a superwash, because I know that superwash isn't meant for that. And also, where I do love the softness of a superwash yarn, there's just something about the rusticness of something like an alpaca that's really great. And with color work, it's just amazing what a natural fiber does. So I just can't wait to play with more natural fibers this year, and since I already have some in my stash, I'm just so excited to hopefully cast that on, maybe soon, who knows. I do have one sample knit coming up, and I did apply to be a sample knitter for another brand that I really love, so that would be really awesome. And then I did get an exciting email today about another possible opportunity for my YouTube channel here, so I have a lot of big things coming in 2020, I hope. It's kind of scary to think about all the plans that you have and how far that you'll get with them. Life can be hard sometimes, and it's got its ups and downs. Sorry if the angle changed. I ran out of storage on my phone and had to delete some stuff, but I just wanted to say that I've been on YouTube for a really long time, and I just absolutely love it. So I just hope that this year I can really take it to the next level for you guys and for myself, because really this is like a video diary for me to look back on in the future and just see how far I've come in my knitting journey, which is always so great for me. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed following along on today's podcast episode. If you have any questions or recommendations on what you would like to see in the next episode, leave a comment down below. Also, leave a comment down below if you have ever frogged a project so many times and then finally found a home for that new yarn, because I want to hear about it. Also, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel for more content coming up this year. And I'll see you guys later. Bye!